Hello and welcome to another Wrestling Roundtable Discussion podcast. I'm Adam Wilbourn from WhatCulture, joined by the Dudley boys of WhatCulture, Michael Hamflett and Michael Sidgwick, to discuss another burning wrestling issue. But before we get into it, if you're a fan of this sort of thing, make sure you subscribe to WhatCulture Wrestling on either iTunes or Spotify for daily podcasts where we review Raw, SmackDown, pay-per-views. We have interviews, more roundtable discussions like this one, and a roundup of the week complete with a bloody good quiz, of course, on WrestleCulture. But gents, the Royal Rumble is just a few days away and it is looking good. My question to you today is, could this be the best Rumble ever?
If they maximise its potential, then absolutely, that main card, screw the pre-show, that main card looks incredible on paper. We'll go through it match by match, of course, but I think if you look at it as an actual show, which is a lost art in WWE in this bloated network era. It's an actual show. I think that card complements itself perfectly. At least two of the title matches, both of which are fresh, which I think is another major plus for this show. The Finn Balor Brock Lesnar match, the Sasha Banks Ronda Rousey match, they're not going to go more than 15 minutes apiece. It comes to something when you're looking ahead and previewing a WWE show where I'm just so thankful that there's a great chance I'm not going to be exhausted. That's what we're looking at now, but I do generally think, facetiousness aside, the show looks great. It's got the potential to be really something.
Not least on a show where they're advertising 2 hour-long matches. The Women's Royal Rumble is not just a perfect advent now because the division's ready to support it, but this is the era, as Sidgwick says, of these bloated network shows that are often not very well paced, and we know that they're on a dollars per minute sort of roll with these shows as it is. But I'm really hyped for 2 hour-long matches that feel worthy of the place on the card. And then because it's the Rumble, the undercard, everything feels bigger. There doesn't feel like there's any room for any filler because you've got Royal Rumbles to get to. So it's they're loading up everything with near WrestleMania level matches in between 2 of the most fun matches that you can watch all year. There's just no dead weight on the show.
Every single match has a championship involved with it, or of course the 2 Rumble matches which has a championship stipulation.
Opportunity.
Yeah, exactly. It's really exciting. It's arguably, we'll sort of compare this to previous Rumbles and Rumble pay-per-views in a second. But is one of the things about this year's the sort of predictable unpredictability of it, because a lot of people can sit there and look at this card and go, well, Brock Lesnar's probably going to win, Ronda Rousey's probably going to win, Daniel Bryan's probably going to win. Arguably, you can then look at the likes of Charlotte Flair and Seth Rollins to win the Rumble. And despite all that, you can still feasibly, for a certain few of those, say, but what if they don't?
Yeah, I think Daniel Bryan defeating AJ Styles to me feels like the only nailed-on result, and that's one of the matches I'm still most excited about because I'm excited to see what they're going to do. All the other matches benefit from the fact that you can't quite predict it. You can make assumptions, like you say, about something like Brock Lesnar versus Finn Balor, but the 1% is enough to get you hyped up. We assume that Brock Lesnar is going to be going to WrestleMania as Universal Champion, but what if he isn't? You could make that assumption that Braun was going to win, so why can't you now transfer that over to Finn Balor just to get yourself that little bit more excited that the unpredictable might actually happen? I think as well, what they've benefited from is having post sort of Survivor Series. I think we've discussed on Raw and SmackDown podcasts. There's sometimes a lot to be said for the short-term booking, helping these pay-per-views more than the long-term. They've kind of rushed into this. After a bit of a dry Christmas, they've rushed into this Rumble maybe 2 or 3 weeks. Nothing yet feels out of date, and nothing yet feels like they've put so much into the program on television that you're sort of tired of the program before you get to the pay-per-view. Finn Balor was a last-minute change, and everything last-minute they've done lately has been better for it. And nothing, everything feels super fresh and hitting at just the right time. And in this era of so much churn and so much output, it's rare that you're actually ready to see the matches when they're about to hit you. It just feels like it's a perfect storm for this pay-per-view to deliver. Which, to be fair, like it did in 2018, one of the best shows of the year right out the gate.
You look back at some of the other great Royal Rumble pay-per-views, arguably you could put last year's in there. Yes, you had the Brock, Braun and Kane match, but then you also had a thrilling inaugural Women's Royal Rumble, a phenomenally exciting Men's Royal Rumble. Yes, you had the AJ Styles versus Cammy. But
Cammy.
Looking slightly further back, you've got
Cammy.
You've got the 2000 Royal Rumble pay-per-view, the 2002 Royal Rumble pay-per-view, the 2011 Royal Rumble pay-per-view. It could arguably be better than all those, even if you take into account Taz's debut or Triple H's return to win the Rumble in 2002.
My favourite Rumble, which this is very subjective. I don't think many other people have it right up there. But as a top-to-bottom attraction with there's loads of great things happening on it was the 2000 Royal Rumble. You had Taz's debut, which was just a phenomenal opener, like an actual opener, the purest like sort of the form. You had that ridiculous Smith swimsuit Royal Rumble thing, which I was 14 or 15.
It makes sense why it's his
best thing in the world when you're 14 or 15. You know, less problematically, that classic WWE and WWF championship match between Triple H and Mick Foley, like, still stands up to this day as this disgusting but engaging, mesmerizing spectacle of like this war of a match. And you had Taka Michinoku breaking his face.
Magic.
Magic.
Jeff Hardy kind of foreshadowing that
that
entire
match was
tag
great.
division by like swantoning off the balcony at Madison Square
That
Garden.
was fresh as
Felt like
hell
a
at the
turning
time
point,
as
didn't
well.
it?
That was so fresh. Couldn't take my eyes from that. It was a really fresh match. Some of the undercard wasn't great, but it, you know, you still got like a massive nostalgic affection for it. Watching it back now, and you know, it didn't outstay its welcome. And you know, the Rumble match itself was one of the poorer efforts, but The Rock was in it in 2000. So how bad could it have possibly been?
I watched every Royal Rumble pay-per-view over the last sort of 3 weeks to review them. Please read that, to rank them from worst to best. And yeah, the Rumble undercard from 2000 sticks out. And why I would actually relate that to 2018 is because one thing everybody sort of identifies about 2000 was it was kind of the point, I mean, the Radicals hadn't yet come in, but other than those four, WWE had really got all the ducks in a row. Like the worst of Vince Russo's habits from 99 had disappeared and been replaced by like more great wrestling, more exciting wrestlers and more sort of futuristic booking. And you know, the wave of the creative and commercial success that WWE rode through the year 2000 kind of kicked off there.
Yeah.
And I think we're in that point again now where we've just been waiting for WWE's sort of super roster, the roster that theoretically caters to all tastes. You've got your great wrestling, you've got your sports entertainment, you've got a women's division like never before. Just a mix of great characters. We've not really yet seen the pay-per-view that truly pays off that roster. We've not seen a WrestleMania that completely over 6 hours makes the best of a roster of this higher quality. Could this be the year where, like in 2000, they do that again? They tell us that this is the product we can actually deliver all the time.
There's an actual impetus for them to do that this year as well, because obviously with the advent of All Elite Wrestling and like widespread reports of talent morale just completely in the gutter, this has got the potential to be like a real mea culpa.
Yeah.
To like apologise for all the terrible booking and to sort of tell the public and the talent alike, we're going to do a complete blow-away show here to let you know that you're going to get booked well going forward. This is going to be a vital company where you matter and you get to be creative going forward. I mean, I've been fooled by WWE once or twice before, several occasions, but this feels different. It feels like, I don't want to say like a sleeping giant's waking up, but I'd like to. And if you approach these things with positivity, Rich coming from me, then maybe you can get a bit of return on that investment.
Look, we don't want to get too much into predictions territory here, but when you look at, like you say, the rosters that they've got to choose from, and you know, it did sort of fall off the map for a while, the Royal Rumble, because it was just kind of this going through the motions, the odd big comeback from a star you've not seen in years, but beyond that, it was very much more of the same, and you could probably call it a fair few times.
Yeah.
Despite the fact that, yes, you could arguably say, well, I think we all know the two winners of the Rumble, who they're probably going to be. You not only have the excitement of some exciting feuds that they've got going on at the moment. For example, if you had Andrade and Rey as 1 and 2, you know you'd get a fantastic opener to the Rumble, for example. You not only have that, you not only have returning stars, like we for example, we saw the Hurricane. Very simple, very, you know, obvious pop last year, but a memorable moment nonetheless. But you now also have this excitement of the speculation that we've been talking about in the office, and I know everyone will have been talking about at home as well, about which NXT stars could we see just pop up. We've had the likes of Adam Cole in it in previous years, and we're sat there saying, is Matt Riddle going to make an appearance? Is Velveteen Dream going to make an appearance? That all sort of adds to the aura of not just the pay-per-view, but in particular the Royal Rumble match for both the men's and the women's.
Yeah, certainly. There's lots of like subplots. Even something as simple as what is Kofi Kingston's like near elimination spot going to be this year?
Which they wrote into SmackDown, which I think is a credit to them, actually. They put that in as a segment because they now understand what people anticipate about the Royal Rumble, as they showed last year.
Yeah.
And I think there's no reason not to be optimistic, I think, which is a nice feeling to have about this pay-per-view again, isn't it? You know?
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a lot of divisive opinions across the fandom. I don't want to say WWE universe, but and they could sort of potentially like exploit that with something like, I think I pitched this in a conversation on the desk or whatever the other day, or I think it was in the Raw and SmackDown review podcast, which you can check out on iTunes or Spotify. People absolutely hate Baron Corbin, or just completely numb to him or bored by him or whatever. The idea of him winning that Royal Rumble or going on some kind of tear where he eliminates lots of people, like that could be like a really neat little subplot that is just going to create another feeling, which could add to this like chaos and this din of this like incredible spectacle that just keeps you guessing from one moment to the next, makes you feel different things. I'm really, really excited about this match.
We sort of discussed Nia Jax doing the same in the Women's Royal Rumble.
Yeah, I know,
I know. Sort of it got like this terrible response when I suggested her to win it, but the idea is that you create the panic that she might. It's never about Nia Jax winning. It's about the threat that God, Nia Jax can't go to WrestleMania. I think last year's Rumble it's definitely has changed the narrative that the gimmick was in the bin. I think like the big sign in the corner kind of represented the changing of an era where they were kind of like trying to tell us that these guys were stars. By those guys pointing at the sign year after year, it was like, I'm going to WrestleMania, you need to get on board with me, rather than just the fans coming up and underneath the wrestlers in the first place and wanting them to get there. Seth Rollins is a bit of a divisive figure, I think, at the moment. Probably more like him than don't, but even he's a guy that within that one match could be booked as winning it is the next logical step in his road to kind of final redemption. Nakamura last year, alongside Finn Balor being paired off with John Cena and Roman Reigns, was WWE like inch perfect at identifying who like a lot of their fans were in favour of against the guys that are known as the office favourites. They can easily replicate that with someone like a Baron Corbin, not so much as a favourite, but with somebody that you create the storyline throughout. There's other guys in there now, even I would say that won't get booed as much, but probably won't be wanted to be as winners. If they do throw someone like Braun Strowman in, I dare say now we won't have quite the positivity around him that you would have had, say, 6 months back. So if you find yourself down to Braun Strowman and Seth Rollins, the heat for those two as the final two is going to be fantastic, because they're going to be asking the fans to make a choice, like permanently make a choice.
1994.
Exactly like the Lex Luger Bret Hart thing that Vince McMahon gave that finish to the fans. Both men's arms were raised and he was saying, right, who's going to get the louder cheers, who's going to be supported, and a choice was made going forward to WrestleMania.
You made mention of the fact that people are split on Seth Rollins. And I think you put it well, like people like him, I don't think they love him. And personally, my subjective feeling, and there's no shame in this, given like how great the wider wrestling scene is right now. I personally think Seth Rollins, as a babyface, is a B+ player. But they could, and they should, in my opinion, have him come out in the 1 or 2 slot, because the most momentum he's had in quite some time, and in fact, it changed a lot of people's perceptions of him, was during that gauntlet match last year on Raw. And he, on his best day, is like really, really phenomenal. And he is like a machine of stamina and athleticism. And if they can pitch and lay out the Royal Rumble match to sort of maximize that like stamina and that endurance and that fighting spirit, then I think he could really possibly go into WrestleMania with momentum.
He's got to look and feel like a star again, hasn't he?
Yeah.
He's got to be as big as you kind of once believed he was, because he's such a perception wrestler. When he has off weeks or off months or an off feud like with Dean Ambrose, he's reduced in status so quick, almost overnight. But they can turn it around on him just as quickly.
Yes.
I'm going to ask you a question about the men's Royal Rumble in a second. The women's Royal Rumble side of things is fascinating and weirdly unpredictable, despite the fact there's two, maybe you can at a push argue put Alexa Bliss now back in there, but probably only 2 names, one of which is already in a title match. It's an intriguing prospect there, isn't it? Because everyone says it's got to be Charlotte, but then Becky Lynch is fighting Asuka for the SmackDown Women's Championship. Everyone anticipates a triple threat match for the Raw Women's Championship. Charlotte and Becky are on SmackDown, Ronda's on Raw. How does that all come together?
Personally, I'm not so fussed about Becky Lynch getting in. I know like a lot of people have already fantasy booked her way into the Royal Rumble, and I do worry about the Daniel Bryan style response if that match goes on last and she's not inserted. So they've got a lot of big decisions to make about where it's placed on the card and how they kind of affect the rest of the booking. I'm all for Charlotte winning the Royal Rumble, because the Women's Royal Rumble, although the Royal Rumble is a 30-plus-year-old gimmick, the Women's Royal Rumble is 2 years old, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that gimmick being protected by the best person winning it. The 2 of the first 3 Rumbles were won by Hulk Hogan. In the 90s, they were swallowed up by Shawn Michaels, Bret Hart, and Stone Cold Steve Austin. Big stars won that match, because it was the hardest thing like a star could do. That was a badge of honor for a top guy to wear. Asuka had it last year, and yeah, the wheels fell off a little bit with Asuka.
A bit.
But they're never going to fall off with Charlotte Flair, ever.
No.
Yeah. She will always be protected by the company. So as much as I think people want Becky Lynch to have that kind of babyface fire heading into WrestleMania from the Rumble, you can find ways to slot her in. And I don't think there is anything wrong with heavy favourite Charlotte Flair just winning it because she's the best, because she's everything she says she is. They're not asking you to boo her. They're not asking you to cheer her anymore. They're just asking you to believe in what she says every week. And a Rumble win like justifies that completely.
I'd love to see Charlotte Flair win, and I'm completely on board and have little else to follow up, to be perfectly honest, because I know if this triple threat match at Mania happens, that leaves SmackDown's wide open. So it might make sense on some level to get the ducks in a row, to have someone from SmackDown win who's unfancied, or have someone from Raw win, and then they can do like some kind of swap over to SmackDown. But nah, I'd have no problems whatsoever with Charlotte Flair winning this because she's outstanding. It will add like so much integrity to her character. And there's different narrative ways of making it fascinating, even if the result is to many somewhat obvious. Like she could do a marathon Iron Woman stint and just gloat about how great she is. But if she comes out at number 29 and number 30 and does not much, Becky Lynch can just stake, well, you just backdooring your way into things again. You're doing other people's hard work, just like you did to me. There's lots of different narrative possibilities, even if there's only one possibility of the result, if that makes any sense.
Carmella,
don't talk about Carmella.
She inserted herself into the conversation on SmackDown. She's the number 30 entrant.
Yeah, but like so does No Way Jose.
No, but what I mean by that is
that's what the
she has evolved her wrestling style a lot over the last few months. I'm not saying she should win it, but it's not as much as
I'll provide
R-Truth coming out at number 30. I don't think even R-Truth thinks he's going to win.
I don't mind being the daddy that defends Carmella. The thing with Carmella for me in this Rumble, I like Carmella probably a lot more than Michael Sidgwick, and where they've booked themselves into a corner here is that this bantering off the number 30 spot that people want to give to Becky Lynch, I don't think should be at Carmella's expense. I think at this point she's too elevated compared to the bottom rung of the women's division to just be decked backstage like Test was by Mick Foley in a Royal Rumble once. There are people on that roster that could serve that joke spot quite well, with no disrespect intended to someone like a Dana Brooke or a Lana. There is a bottom tier of women's wrestlers at the moment that can absorb that kind of that joke really at their expense. But I think Carmella deserves a little bit more than that. And I think unless they're dropping Becky in from 25 to 29, I wouldn't touch Carmella.
Now we've done a list on this channel as well, all about who we think's going to win the Royal Rumble, and there's obvious suggestions in there. So what I'm going to ask of you two now is, we all assume, generally, it's going to be Seth Rollins, and we're going to see Seth Rollins versus Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania. If it's not Seth Rollins, who will it be, or who would you like it to be?
Right. Braun's the obvious pick, but I don't really want to talk about that because I'm so uninspired by the character of late, which I think is quite a big problem that a lot of people are having. To answer your question with another question, is there anybody, presuming Daniel Bryan retains the WWE title, is there anyone on SmackDown, a babyface, who's at this level, who's like worthy of a WrestleMania match? Now,
the suggestion I've read online, which I did enjoy and I do think could work, but it would take a lot of very good writing, is Kofi Kingston. Ooh. He has a stellar run in the Royal Rumble. If he wins the Royal Rumble, that's great. But you talk about the personification of everything Daniel Bryan hates, the consumerism, like the fan pandering. Mm-hmm. And there's someone who the fans would get behind. The fans, as much as they love Daniel Bryan, they would support Kofi Kingston because people have been crying out for another singles push for him.
Spectacular New Day entrance versus Daniel Bryan's stripped back, angry walk to the ring at WrestleMania. I could see it.
I agree.
Rhetorical question, the answer was no.
Outside of him, there's not a lot.
But again, I'm using that as a platform to discuss that. I think there's a real fascination in who does what on the SmackDown side of things. I'll be looking at that roster in that men's Royal Rumble match and saying, who are they trying to flatter here? Who are they trying to make look good ahead of like the February pay-per-views? Because I've got no idea what they're doing in that title picture. So again, there's just layers and layers and layers of fascination. And I think a lot of it's to do with the fact that it's all a bit chaotic around Rumble season. They've got the Cena plans, as Lars Sullivan seems to have just completely gone up in smoke. There's no Mania-worthy baby faces on the SmackDown side to oppose Daniel Bryan. Raw seems more set in stone, but again, I'm just going to be watching this match, just wondering what the hell is going on.
You speak about intrigue there, and we discussed this on the SmackDown podcast, Raw and SmackDown podcast earlier on this week. Part of the intrigue I have nowadays with the Royal Rumble especially is not just who's going to be the Iron Man or who's going to win the Rumble. It's what storylines develop out of it. It's obviously used as a leaping off point to build to a big match at WrestleMania.
A good one should be, yeah.
Yeah. And Randy Orton is someone I cannot wait to see in this Rumble. He has fingered ears in 2018. He has been arguably he's done some of his best work,
yes,
I thought,
absolutely.
in 2018, aside from some of his other amazing runs many years ago. Stuff like that is really good as well, because you want to be so involved in the Rumble that it's not just about who wins, it's about the fallout from it as well.
Yeah, I think, we talk about obviously the main event permutations for WrestleMania, because that's obviously what we're all going to think about. But yeah, you're right, good Rumbles set up plenty in the mid-card as well. I would love to see this year, those spots where they always do where like two people pair off while there's just a slew of bodies. I would love to see that between Andrade and Rey, because they've put money in the bank between the two of them, having something more significant maybe at WrestleMania, because all we're basically being told is that those two are fantastic at wrestling each other. So I would like to see a moment where the two of them stand underneath a sign and get a bigger response than John Cena and Randy Orton ever did. There are spots.
Or someone could just go, and get a bigger response than Randy Orton and John Cena did in 2011. It was pathetic. It was hilarious.
You've got surprise comebacks, and you mentioned the Hurricane, and everybody loves like a banter comeback, but
I don't.
We're ruling out.
Tired of that.
We're ruling out like proper comebacks for proper matches and proper runs. I know the rumour today has gone around that The Undertaker isn't going to wrestle at WrestleMania 35, but has that been dropped in to kind of throw you off the scent? And might The Undertaker make a surprise appearance in a Rumble, a perfect setting for him to set up a program? We watched him go, 2 minutes against Roman Reigns in 2017?
They've got golf carts.
That fooled us.
He's going to need one.
The Rumble can fool you into thinking that you can go again with somebody because he only needs to be in there a couple of minutes, doesn't he? So like somebody like him, another legend that they might try out. We've mentioned The Rock for the Hall of Fame. He's another guy that it's not going to happen probably, but like I like the idea of somebody being airlifted in that you just never expected that could then be a major part of the WrestleMania plans going forward. I don't know. I think this year, especially because there's so many potential winners, like beyond Seth. If we're ruling out Seth Rollins, you kind of throw it open to a slew of mid-carders. I think this year the excitement is going to be around that closing stretch when number 30s come in, and there's going to be 6 or 7 guys in the ring. Most of them probably not like former winners. I think that's always really exciting to see that there's going to be a new winner. There's going to be somebody that never before has had this huge, to use a WWE word, but this huge opportunity to build off. There's not many bigger ones. For all they talk up everything as an opportunity, like a title shot and a Rumble and a King of the Ring and things like that. The Rumble really is one. Nakamura's completely fallen off the face of this entire pay-per-view. But generally speaking, that means something. You etch your place in their kind of company canon going forward. And I'd like to think that you're going to get down to the last 4 or 5, and there's going to be almost no previous winners, which is elevation. It does prove that talent are kind of breaking through.
Very quickly, if you could pick one NXT star to appear in the Rumble, men's or women's, who would you like to see go in there? Just not necessarily to be called up to the main roster afterwards, but as we've seen in previous years, just to have a moment or a bit of time in that Rumble.
Velveteen Dream.
Shayna Baszler to win.
Shayna Baszler to win.
There's your Asuka match. Let the Raw main event be the Raw main event.
I mean, Velveteen Dream was the one I was thinking.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Can you imagine the reaction he gets, the entrances he does, the gear he wears in a stadium?
He's in the Access Rumble, isn't he?
Surprise.
Is that right? They've got like this Access Rumble, haven't they, where because he's not on TakeOver, which is a crime. So that'll be the one to watch. I think most people will be keeping their fingers crossed it'll be someone like Velveteen Dream or somebody from that high level of NXT rather than, say, like 205 Live or NXT UK.
Thanks for ruining that. So, cheers.
He could win it.
We can dream.
On the Access Rumble.
So to circle back to our original point,
yes.
I think it was Kid Icarus tweeted this to me on Twitter regarding just the Royal Rumble match. 1992, one of the best Royal Rumbles ever. 2001, obviously. 2010, arguably the best Royal Rumble match ever. 9-year intervals between them. It's 2019. Are we going to see the best Royal Rumble match in a long time?
It'll do if it's close to last year's quality. I'll be ecstatic because I know you've gone through that list. My favourite of all time is 2018. Absolutely loved every single second of it. They got the comedy right for once. They got the surprise appearances right because I like the NXT guys and not just because, like, think about it. I know the Hurricane was in it. We'll just forget about the Hurricane. I like him.
Wilbourn won't let us.
Absolutely great performer for his time, but I'm pedantic. I think about this stuff way too much. Theoretically, if there's a guy from yesteryear who comes into the Rumble, how's he got in? How's he got in? Do they extend an invitation? Do they put basically everyone associated with the company, past or present, in the tumbler? And it just so happens to be like 27 current guys and like 3. It makes no sense storyline for those like dorks from the past.
They just send out an email to everyone on the mailing list.
No,
saying,
I think it's
Undertaker at WWE.com, Hurricane at. Just things like that. Everyone gets the email. First one there grabs it.
I think it's just, it's from what, I spoke to the Hurricane, and from what he seemed to suggest, it's one big WhatsApp group, and it's whoever says, puts their hand up first. That's
Loved the Hurricane in 2003, 2018. Like, it's still, irrespective of the performer, I just think it's stupid.
One of the best moments of last year's Royal Rumble.
So I'm glad that trend is ending, basically, is what I'm trying to get at.
Yes, but 2019, one of the best Rumbles ever.
Yeah, why not? 2018 fixed what we pretty much all thought was broken, didn't we? There was that awful sort of 2 or 3 in a row that looked like it completely killed the gimmick. 2017 was pretty good. 2018 was superb. So yeah, can't really sort of fault what Sidgwick said. If it even matches last year's, we're on to another winner.
The most important thing, I suppose, is we're all excited about it, which is, I've mentioned over previous years.
It's an unfamiliar feeling for me.
It's a very surreal thing. We will be doing a stream for the Royal Rumble, so make sure you check that out on our YouTube channel, of course. Let us know your thoughts on this Rumble, on the pay-per-view, on who you think is going to win in the comments section below. And of course, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. My thanks to the Dudley Boys. Thank you for watching. Enjoy the Rumble, and we will see you soon.
Sorry for the tangent at the end there.